So I'm Asia Selden, a digital producer at KTVU, and joining me today is crime reporter Henry Lee. And so we're discussing the latest developments involving the convicted kidnapper Matthew Muller, who's known for the American Nightmare case. So for those unfamiliar, Matthew Muller, he was responsible for the 2015 kidnapping and rape of Denise Huskins in Vallejo. Initially, police did dismiss the case as a hoax, and her story was later adapted into a Netflix docu-series, which Henry was featured in because he extensively covered the case. Now, Henry, the last time we spoke, Matthew Muller had been charged in more attacks in the Bay Area in 2009. That's when the cases happened. There was one in Palo Alto and then one in Mountain View, I want to say, and they
Yes,
both
that's right.
happened again in 2009, a month apart, right? So Matthew Muller has since pleaded guilty in those two crimes. Was that surprising?
Yeah, it was a surprise. I was in court in San Jose for his entry of plea, and most defendants they enter a standard not guilty plea, and I more or less expected that. There was some thought that he would plead guilty, but when he actually did, he said it in such a low voice, I had to double check and say, wait, did he say guilty or not guilty? He actually pleaded guilty. They call it pleading to the sheet, meaning he pleaded to all the crimes that he was charged with in Santa Clara County for those two home invasions that the DA says were sexually motivated. So he is expected to be sentenced to life in prison for those two crimes. So he's already serving 40 years and 31 years concurrently for the Vallejo attacks against Denise Huskins and her now husband, Aaron Quinn. So these will be an additional time for him to spend. So he's going to be there for a while, the rest of his life.
Got it. Can you go more? I know you were in the courtroom when he entered his plea. What was his demeanor like? I know you said he pleaded guilty and he sounded kind of quiet, but describe kind of what his body language was like in the courtroom.
And he wore a tan jail jumpsuit, sat next to his attorney, and he just matter of factly said, "Guilty, Your Honor," and answered a lot of standard questions in a clear voice. And it was just stunning to see that he is now admitting guilt when before, we didn't think that there would be such a resolution this quickly.
Got you. Now, these two cases in Palo Alto and Mountain View, they seem to have some similarities in what he did during the commission of these crimes. Can you elaborate a bit on that? I know the women were tied up.
Right. In both cases, the intruder, who was a stranger to both these women, gave each woman a concoction, medication like NyQuil to get them sleepy. And that's exactly what happened to Denise and Vallejo. And that police thought that was one of the many details that was too far-fetched to be a real part of a crime. But that's exactly what happened along the peninsula twice. They were given these concoctions to make them feel sleepy. And when he was about to sexually assault both women in these separate cases, they pleaded for him not to, and he actually relented. He said, okay, but not before giving them crime prevention advice. He told one woman, you should get a dog to help protect yourself. And he told the other woman something similar to securing her locks and windows. So it's almost bizarre that here he is just about to sexually assault, women after invading their homes, and then for some reason listening to them and not going through with his plan.
I think one of the things too that's kind of striking about this, this case and the Denise Huskins case, but Matthew Muller himself is like his demeanor when carrying out these crimes, like what happens during the crimes, like tying them up and, the sexual assault and the rape and things like that. And then like seeing his demeanor, which is kind of, he seems soft spoken and just kind of timid. It's like it's a mismatch almost. Like, I guess you would say. But I know you mentioned that he's already serving a lengthy sentence in the Denise Huskins case. And so he is facing life. Is it life for the Palo Alto and Mountain View cases?
Right now, usually for certain sex crimes, there is a statute of limitations, but there's no statute of limitations for the crimes for which he pleaded guilty. So that means that, and for these specific crimes, these home invasions with sexual intent, there is a mandatory sentence of life in prison. So they were able to tie him to these cases with the help of DNA, and that's where we are now.
Got you. And so Matthew Muller is also he also confessed to a 2015 previously unreported kidnapping in San Ramon. How do you kind of anticipate that might go, given that he's already confessed and pleaded guilty with these 2009 cases? Do you see something similar like that happening in the 2015 case that happened in San Ramon?
Right. The 2015 case in San Ramon happened just 2 weeks after he kidnapped and raped Denise Huskins. And according to Denise, promised her and told her, I feel bad. I'm never going to do this again. Well, he was accused of doing this again 2 weeks later with a kidnapping for ransom of three victims in San Ramon. He has not officially pleaded guilty. He doesn't have a court date yet, but um, outside of his own statements, the police still have to have corroborating evidence, which the DA says they have. So if and when he appears in Martinez for that case, then we'll see where that goes. But again, he is just racking up all these cases all around the Bay Area. And we recall, of course, that he was connected to the Vallejo case finally because of the Alameda County Sheriff's Office and Dublin Police when they connected him to a Dublin incident.
Got you. So for the 2015 case, has he been formally charged in that case?
He has been charged by Contra Costa County DA prosecutors, but he has not yet had a court date. Even though he says he has made admissions to that, they still have to have him before a judge and formally enter a plea. And we'll see if he decides to immediately enter a guilty plea in that case as well.
Okay. And Denise Huskins, we touched on this the last time we spoke, played a key role in helping solve, some of these, I don't want to say newer cases, but these cases that have kind of just come to light. I'll say that. Um, And so, can we talk about like the role that she continues to play in finding new victims and finding like some sort of resolve or resolution for these victims? I know there was like a letter writing, I don't want to say campaign, but like Matthew Muller had been sending letters back and forth to a law enforcement official. Can you kind of talk about that? Because that's how they kind of were able to also pinpoint or, match him to some of these crimes along with DNA evidence.
Right. Both Denise and Aaron have been really um, outspoken about how law enforcement should and can do better. And in fact, after American Nightmare came out on Netflix, the police chief in Seaside, Nick Borges, saw that and he was just moved to contact the media on social, or the couple on social media. They responded and they together created a plan to have a symposium, if you will, a seminar in Seaside, inviting a law enforcement from all over the state to have the couple talk to them and encourage them not to have tunnel vision. And from that, that led the Seaside police chief to write to Matthew Muller, and Muller wrote back with admissions in all these other cases, and that led to visits with Mueller in a Tucson federal prison by the FBI and the Santa Clara County DA, as well as Mountain View and Palo Alto police, where they gathered separate corroborating evidence they say tied him to those two cases. So again, hats off to, of course, Denise and Aaron, the Seaside police chief, and all the law enforcement agents who now have listened to these victims and righted a wrong and have tied now Mueller to these other cases.
Got you, got you. Well, thank you so much, Henry, for joining me for another podcast session on American Nightmare and Matthew Muller. I'm pretty sure that we'll be doing this again as these, new developments come about with these new cases.